All right, let's go. Hallelujah. Happy Sunday. Let's do it. Come on in, say hi, and share. This is going to be good. Come on in, say hi, and share. Hello, 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 hello. Come on in, say hi, and share. Let's talk about this. Trauma and the church. Let's go. I am going to share this myself, and I want you to come in. Melissa, how are you? Bless you. Shavera, bless you. How are you? Come on in, say hi and share. Let's do it. All right, so I'm going to share it with as many people as I can, and let's get started. Let's talk about trauma and the church. This is something that we need to talk about. This is something that we cannot ignore. So let me talk about it. All right. Okay, come on, say hi and share. My name is Timothy Lane. I am a pastor. I am an author. Bless you. How you doing? I am a therapist. I've written God Therapy, 7-Step Guide to Inner Healing and Deliverance. I've written another book that's coming out soon, Healing Trauma God's Way. That's coming out very soon. And I do inner healing and deliverance counseling Monday through Thursday. I am ministering inner healing and casting out devils. That's what I do Monday through Thursday. Okay, let's go. I just share with any and everybody. I didn't even look at my group. I just start sharing with everybody. I just start sharing, and I want to get started. So I asked my followers, and I asked people that follow me. I wanted them to ask me questions about trauma and the church, and I got a bunch of questions. I couldn't answer them all. Some of them was the same type of questions, so I narrowed it down to 4 questions I am going to answer about trauma and the church. All right, and this is something that cannot be ignored. This is something that is coming to the forefront. There's so many people that's dealing with trauma, and they're saved, and they're dealing with the impact of trauma. And trauma is something that you can't shout over, you can't dance over, you can't prophesy over, you can't speak in tongues over. Oh my goodness, you can't give a big enough offering to heal your trauma. Trauma is something that you have to address head on in order for you to get free from it, in order for you to heal from it. So let's talk about trauma and the church. Let's start with question number 1. I'm going to answer 4 questions. All right. Now, again, I want you to share this, tag someone, share it. All right, let's go. So Sister Shay's question is, are traumas generational in origin, or can they come down through the bloodline? All right, so this is an important question. There's 3 ways where trauma can travel or come down through the bloodline or through the family line. First of all, it's through genetics. Okay, so trauma can leave a chemical imprint in a person's genes that can be passed down to the children. So you can pass your trauma down to the children. So through genetics. Secondly, trauma can be passed down through parenting styles. Willa, bless you. Jacqueline, how are you doing? All right. So instead of parenting with purpose, a lot of parents parent from their pain. So instead of parenting to nurture, like we're supposed to parent our children with purpose, like we're nurturing them, we're developing them, we're imparting, and we're bringing them up, we're training them. So instead of parenting with purpose, you're parenting from your pain, or you're parenting from your triggers. So what does that look like? That looks like child abuse. Right, like you beating them just with extension cords and just hitting it with a frying pan, like you over the top with it. Or neglect, right? You're neglecting them, or you check out because of trauma. You're not checked in, you're not present because of trauma, so you neglect them, or you're overprotective, or you're emotionally detached. All right, so trauma can transfer through genetics, through parenting style, or through learned behavior. What is learned behavior? Children learn more by what they see than what you say. Okay, children learn more by what they see than what you say. So they will mimic your mood, and they will mimic your madness. I had a member when I was a senior pastor. She called me. She was distraught. She said, "Pastor, I deal with depression. I deal with major depression. I was diagnosed with major depression, and I can see it on my child." She was passing her issue down to her child. All right, so that's question number one. Question number two, and if you all have questions, just put them in the chat box. I'll go back and I'll try to answer it. All right. Question number two, Michelle. I like this question. How do you overcome PTCD? What is that? That is a new term. How do you overcome? There you are. How do you overcome post-traumatic church disorder? Lord, help us today. First of all, I want to acknowledge that there are people who have been traumatized in church. Lord, help me today. There are people, hey Dorothy, how are you doing? There are people who have been traumatized in church and by the church. There are people who have been misused, mishandled, and messed up by church leaders and by church. The house of healing became the house of hurt for some people. I have a lot of clients who I have to beg them and process them to get back in church because of church hurt. They don't want to have anything to do with church. All right? So how do you heal? So let me give you some nuggets on how do you heal from post-traumatic church disorder. Jesus, help us. First thing is don't generalize. Okay? Please don't generalize. There's a cognitive distortion called generalization where we say all pastors are like this. Like if one pastor hurt you, then you label all pastors the same way. Or if one church hurt you, your church hurt you, but you say all churches are like that. All churches. Don't generalize. There are some good pastors and some good churches out there. Every church is not bad. There are some good pastors out there. There are some legit leaders out there. There are some good, powerful churches out there. You just happen to be in the bad one. Or you just happen to have a bad experience. Don't blame everybody for what somebody did to you. All right, let me say that again. Don't blame everybody for what somebody did to you, because your healing and your help could be connected to those people that you're blaming that had nothing to do with what happened to you. All right, so don't generalize, but identify who hurt you, and you would have to get healing and deliverance in that area. All right, and then a part of your healing is find a good, loving church. Don't just stop going to church because you was hurt. Find a good, loving church where you can heal from your hurt. All right. The second thing, how do I heal from PTCD? Don't blame God for what people did to you. All right. Now this is important because a lot of people blame God for what the prophet said. Now the prophet was just off that day. Okay. The prophet ate some funny food, and their prophecy was off. And then you listened to them because you didn't judge them and you didn't critique it and you didn't try the spirit by the spirit. So you just went and did whatever they said, and now your life is all messed up. Come on now, you married the wrong person, or you just quit your job. I don't know. So y'all be doing some crazy stuff, and there be some crazy prophecies out there, and now everything fell apart, and now you want to blame God. Don't blame God for what people did to you. Don't punish God for what people did to you, okay? I had a member who was hurt, and she left the church. She didn't talk to me. She didn't come to my office. She just stopped coming to church, and she went back out into the world. And one time I was at the grocery store, and I saw her. I was like, what happened to you? And she says, Mother such and such hurt me, and I'm just done with church. I'm just done. I don't want to go to church. I don't want to read my Bible. I don't want to pray. I said, why are you punishing God for what people did? God didn't hurt you. Okay, so we get hurt and we stop coming to church, we stop seeking God. God didn't hurt you, they did. Right? So keep seeking God, because he will fix what church folks have fractured. Lord, help me today. Don't get discouraged and stop seeking God, and you get mad and you just stop coming to church because Mother Bobo or Deacon Jones did something he wasn't supposed to do. So you just quit church, you quit God. No, keep seeking God, because he will fix what church folks has fractured. All right. Question number 3. We got 2 more questions to go. All right. 2 more questions to go. Lulu says, how does a person's trauma affect those around them? How does a person's trauma affect those around them? Trauma creates triggers. Trauma creates triggers. As a result, you begin to torture or traumatize those around you by your traumatic reactions, or I should say traumatic overreactions, right? You're exploding, right? You yelling and screaming. I mean, they don't know you, like a time bomb waiting to go off, or you implode. You just checked out. You just detached. You just numb. You gone. You're either hyper vigilant or you're hypo. Like you there, but you're not there. You've left, like they say, Elvis has left the building. You have left the building. Your trauma has called you to check out, and you are not present. So what happens is you begin to traumatize those around you because of your trauma. That's why it is important for you to heal, because those close to you will get infected by your emotional or mental infection. Okay, so trauma will transfer through vicarious trauma, through secondary trauma. It transfers because you're caring for someone who's been traumatized, or you love a loved one's been traumatized, and you live with them, and being exposed to their trauma causes you to become traumatized. So not only do they need to be free, but you need to be free, because you've become bound by their bondage. I hope y'all caught that, because I can't repeat that again. All right? Okay. Last question, and I'm done. I am finished. All right? Gail asks a deep question. Last question is deep. Here go Gail's question. What are the most common reasons why the church does not deal with trauma? And it leaves people in bondage. And does this bring a domino effect in the body of Christ when trauma is just kind of swept under the rug? Wow. All right, Gail, you went there. So let's go there. All right. Churches, there are 3 reasons why I feel churches don't address trauma. Even though trauma is prevalent in my book, Healing Trauma God's Way, my first chapter is about the trauma epidemic in our churches. There is a trauma epidemic in our churches, and we're shouting and dancing and running around and half-five, touch 3 people, now you can't touch nobody because of COVID. So look at 3 people or point to 3 people. All that's good, but it's not addressing the trauma epidemic in our churches. And I love church. Church is healthy. Church is good for your spiritual development. Church is good to be able to cope and to stay motivated. But there is an absence of churches addressing trauma. So a lot of saints, and y'all know what I'm talking about, a lot of saints have mental disorders. A lot of Christians holding positions, and you can't say crazy, but they got let's say mental disorders. They're not crazy Christians, because it's not proper to call people crazy. So I'm not going to say they crazy Christians. They're just God's special children. Okay? So 3 reasons why I feel churches don't deal with trauma, and I am done. All right? 3 reasons why. Here we go. The first reason is I believe churches don't deal with trauma because they haven't been trained. We learn how to preach. We learn hermeneutics and homiletics and all that exegesis and eschatology. All this deep stuff. But we're not being trained how to handle people's hurt. We're not being trained how to shake them and quake them and get them to run around the church. You know how to get them to fall out, but you don't know how to handle their hurt. So after they get through going through the motions, they're still broken. Churches haven't been trained. In order to deal with trauma, you have to be trained. Lord help me today. Jesus, I'm so glad that I wasn't just a pastor, but God called me to be a therapist, and I was in practice, and I worked with people, and I did assessments, and I did diagnosis. That helped me to pastor. Being trained as a therapist helped me to pastor and helped me to know how to heal God's people. Jesus, we need training in the name of Jesus. All right. Secondly, the first thing is churches are not being trained. The second thing is churches don't deal with trauma because of ignorance. Ignorance. Okay? Some ignorantly think they're addressing it by preaching and teaching. Now, preaching and teaching is wonderful. I love good preaching. I love good teaching. But there's a difference between teaching and treatment. Okay? Teaching is good, but a person that's impacted by trauma usually needs treatment. So after they get taught, after you teach them and after you give your sermon, they need some treatment. You have to address that specific issue and walk them through a process where they can become cured from their pain. All right, let me finish. I've been here for 16 minutes. Not trained, ignorant, right? And we're teaching, but we're not treating. And the second thing, let me talk about the ignorance. Some ignorantly think they're dealing with trauma through deliverance. Hear me out. I could talk about deliverance, y'all. Okay, I cast out demons all the time in my practice. I have an inner healing and deliverance counseling practice. What I do, I bring healing and I cast demons out of people. So I know about deliverance. Let me tell you something about deliverance. Some people think they're dealing with trauma through deliverance. They think trauma is a demon. Trauma is not a demon. Now, a demon can attach to a person. A lot of people are demonized because they've been traumatized. But trauma is not a demon. Okay? So the demon is not the source of the trauma. The demon is the symptom. So in order to address the source or the root of the trauma, the person needs to go through inner healing. They need to get healed first. He healeth the broken heart. It didn't say he cast the devil out of the broken heart. He healed the broken heart. Okay? Then you do deliverance after you bring healing to the broken heart. Okay? So that's ignorant. The last thing, and I'm finished. Thirdly, churches don't deal with trauma because of religious arrogance. There are some churches and some preachers, teachers, they think they know it all. They think they got all the answers. I'm sorry, the only person that know it all is Jesus. You don't have all the answers. So they think they have the answers, so they give the wrong answers. Religious arrogance caused them to judge, caused them to mishandle, caused them to criticize. Oh, you're not saved because you got an issue, and saints can't have mental disorders. So you must not be saved, or you don't know God the way you're supposed to know God. And if you believed God, if you believe God like I believe God, then you wouldn't have that issue. And if you knew God like I knew God, then you wouldn't have the issue. And if you knew how to pray like I know how to pray, then you wouldn't be dealing with that. Arrogance. The hardest people to get delivered is people with titles and positions, because they got to get past that facade, that arrogant, that religious ego. Let's say ego, because some of y'all get offended by arrogance. So let's say ego, religious ego. Okay, so they because of arrogance or ego, they're mishandling people. I have to take a deep breath. I am done. I answered your questions. If you have any more questions, feel free to inbox me or respond. Bless you all. Love you all. My book is coming out really soon. Go to my website, godtherapy.net, if you want to be trained on how to heal people and how to bring real lasting deliverance. Go to godtherapy.net. I have a certification course. I have a lot of stuff going on. You all. All right. Love you all. Bless you all. I am out of here.